Good morning, Jon Mutchler here, pastor at the Ferndale Alliance Church, and it's another beautiful but slightly breezy day here in paradise. And our main point today from our passage in Matthew chapter 5, 21 and 22 is that we ourselves become worthless when we diminish the worth of others in name calling. Again, we ourselves become worthless when we diminish the worth of others in name calling. And today I want to show you from Jesus's words, not my words, Jesus's words himself, that once we resort to name calling, to insult, to belittle, to hurt other people, we actually diminish our own self-worth and value. Now stick with me. Speaking of sticks and stones, we're going to take a very different take on that phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, at the end of this message. So in our last message, I urge and encourage everybody to attempt to completely remove name calling from your verbal arsenal for a few days. Not speaking names towards a person or to a person or about a person or someone you see on the television set. Completely remove name calling. How did you do? It's not easy to do that if we're used to calling people names. Now you might say, Jon, I don't use any of the really bad names. I don't use the N word to belittle a person of color. I don't use the F word or the B word. I just use really innocuous and innocent things like you knucklehead, you goof, you fool, you dummy, you idiot, you moron. I just use stuff like that. Now, is that okay? Is it? That's the question I'm asking this morning. So what I want to do is to look to see what Jesus said, and I want you to know from the start, your beef, your argument is not against Pastor Jon. Your argument is with Jesus Christ. So again, our passage is Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 and 22 from what's been called the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus starts by saying this, something that we all would agree upon, common ground here. Jesus says, you've heard it was said to the people long ago, and he's going to quote from the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 13, you shall not murder. Good plan, huh? Murder is a bad thing. Jesus says murder is a bad thing. We all agree with him. And he says that anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. There are consequences. There are going to be consequences here and now. Hopefully if you're caught. And if you're not caught, I am convinced there are consequences in the life to come. And then verse 22, common ground. And then he shifts here pretty radically and says something that I think should be startling to us. He says this, but I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister, angry with a brother or sister, will be subject to judgment. And again, if anyone says to his brother or sister, and he comes up with two names here, name calling here, he says the first phrase is raka, is answerable to the court, and anyone who says you fool, and the Greek word there is moron, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Now what do these words mean? Are they like really terrible, awful words in the first century? And it's challenging to find an exact dynamic equivalent to these two words. They're Greek words. One's Aramaic, and the other was Greek. Raka and moron. They both are similar. They basically mean fool or worthless one. If we want to use a contemporary idiom, you are a piece of garbage. You are a piece of garbage. And they both proceed from a heart of hate and anger and contempt. Now, are they that big at Jesus? Notice what he says here. They will be in danger. Again, if anyone says, you fool, which is basically literally moron, will be in danger of what? Getting slapped on the hand? No, you will be in danger of the fire of hell. Whoa, Jesus, wow, where did that come from? And the word hell there, most people know this by now, it's the word Gehenna. And Gehenna was a valley just outside the gates of Jerusalem that was basically a cesspool, garbage dump that was so full of things that were flammable that it was always burning. There were always little fires. You can picture that, like a third world dump site where people dumped all their garbage and, can I say it, crap, and it would burn forever and ever. And it's not like Ferndale. Now, Ferndale, I know this from personal experience. Ferndale has very high water and sewer bills, aren't they? If you live in Ferndale, thumbs up if you got a high water bill. Here's the secret. It's not the water. It's the sewage. It's the wastewater component to your bill. Right now, the city of Ferndale has to upgrade its wastewater treatment plant. I think I recall it to be about $30 million that has to be paid for, and it comes from your water sewer bill, because we don't want waste everywhere. But during the time of Jesus in Jerusalem, they didn't have modern conveyance systems, so waste was either dumped in the street or eventually taken outside the city into this horrible dump site in the Valley of Hinnom, the valley or the place of Hinnom, Gehenna. Some traditions say that it was actually a place centuries earlier of child sacrifice. This is a horrible place, and Jesus is saying this is hell. This is what hell looks like. I'm going to find the word that sounds like the most awful place in the world, and let me just paraphrase it a little bit. If you call somebody worthless, you're the one that's going to become worthless. If you call somebody a sack of garbage, you're going to be the person that's going to be the sack of garbage and taken out to the dump site. You see the irony there? And see how clever Jesus is in these verses? We don't catch it originally because of our modern languages. You call somebody worthless, you become worthless. So I want to talk a little bit about why it's bad, why it's wrong to name call, and it's really safest and best to remove all name calling from our arsenal. I don't care if we're talking to somebody personally, or even if we're speaking of someone that's on the TV set. I don't really care. I don't think Jesus cares if you're conservative or liberal, red or blue, Republican or Democrat. And if you see the President of the United States, you might want to say something. You don't need to, and perhaps you shouldn't. If you see the Speaker of the House who happens to be from the other party, you might want to say something, but maybe you shouldn't. At least according to Jesus, it's not Mutchler here making the rules, it's Jesus. So why do we want to avoid doing that? I think there are several reasons. I think I came up with 7 of them. Number 1, it's lazy. I always sort of think when I watch people fight and argue, when you resort to name calling, you've lost the argument. You basically have run out of legitimate ammunition in your debate. And when you're name calling, you basically, it's lazy, it's cheap, and actually to me it shows lack of intelligence. Number 2, name calling, it's a type of slander and defamation. We might use the phrase, and maybe this is where it came from, the words of Jesus, character assassination. When we hate somebody, when we're angry with somebody, it's a type of character assassination. Frankly, I think I've already indicated this. When we name call, we actually say more about ourselves than the object of our name calling. And it's not flattering to us. I don't think it's flattering in any possible way when we resort to name calling. Number 4, Jesus takes this issue very seriously. I think that's the main point I'm trying to get across today. He takes name calling seriously. Even small words like you fool, raka, you idiot, you knucklehead. He says it's as serious. Can I say it? It's as serious as hell. By the way, there's another verse I want to share with you. It's from the words of Jesus again. Words of Jesus, Matthew 12:36, and he says, because we want to say it's more important what I do than what I say. Jesus seems to indicate what you do and what you say are very important. He says in Matthew 12:36, I tell you that everyone, that's everyone will give an account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. And some translators, trying to find a dynamic equivalence, use the word careless or thoughtless or mean-spirited. Everyone will give an account on the day of judgment for every empty, thoughtless, careless, or idle word that they have spoken. Okay, the fifth reason we should be careful with our name calling is that it's generated usually out of the worst of human emotions, that is hate and anger. And I always sort of think that anger, Jesus says that hate and anger are like murder. And I think it's really murder without the courage and without the opportunity. I think a lot of people would go through with murder, would like to see people wiped out. They just don't have the courage or the opportunity. And when we diminish the worth of other people, and it starts usually with name calling, it's easy to start thinking, imagining, and wishing they were gone. Number 6, when we name call, we think that we're more valuable and important than someone else, and we're really not. Again, name calling is usually a lazy, shorthand, quick way of diminishing the value of somebody else, isn't it? That's why we do it. David Berlinski, he's a genius of a mathematician. He's also a moral philosopher. He is not a Christian, but he creates this really interesting thought experiment. I heard him say this on a video just a few weeks ago. I've been pondering it ever since he shared it. Let me share it with you. Again, it deals with the theme of the worth of individuals. What if you were given this amazing button? And if you push that button, you would be given untold wealth without question. You don't even have to answer for it. It just shows up. Maybe it's an amazing unknown inheritance. You would also receive incredible health to live an amazing long life. You would be given by the simple push of this button an unparalleled life of enjoyment and ease and blessing. However, and there's always a however, once you push that button, an anonymous person, and let's just say it's a young girl, 12 years old, of color in a country you have never heard of before, in a village that nobody's ever been to, who's not in especially good health. You push that button and that 12-year-old girl is gone, disappears. That's the trade-off. Berlinski asks this question: who would you trust with that button? Who would you trust with that button? I don't know, maybe you'll think about that. Would I trust myself with that button? So who is more important? And isn't that the perpetual argument of life, of human existence? Am I really worth more than somebody else? And the answer, in God's eyes, we're not. I think about the fact that we are in the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And this one amazing country that produced some of the most brilliant minds ever produced, some of the most talented people, some of the most amazing musicians, people that I absolutely love, worship, and adore. Schumann, Brahms, Bach, Beethoven, Mendelssohn, Wagner, amazing people, creative people. But this same country, within a generation or two of these geniuses, came up with the Holocaust and deemed an entire group of people as worthless. They called them rats, and executed in the most horrible of ways some 6 million Jews. Or how about Rwanda? And the Hutus in Rwanda executing and raping and eliminating countless Tutsis, and they called them cockroaches. And then slave owners. And by the way, to be fair, slave owners of all races throughout history, considering slaves of all races as subhuman animals to be used, traded, exploited, and even killed if you wanted to. And name calling, I'm going to make a big leap here because I'm going to suggest that Jesus is doing the same thing. Name calling, it's the same train. We just haven't reached the final destination yet. The same train of contempt and hatred to have towards other people, especially defined groups of people, is what Jesus is talking about here. Hatred, contempt, anger, it's the beginnings of murder. The final thing I want to say is my main point I started with is that oddly and ironically, we make ourselves worthless in the eyes of God, in danger of hell. He says the trash heap, the burning trash heap of hell, Gehenna, the valley of Hinnom, the local dump. We make ourselves worthless when we call other people worthless, when we deem others with contempt. Okay, yes, Jesus raises the bar. That is what this entire series is about. It makes me uncomfortable. But we need to take Jesus seriously. And I really don't care whether you are an official Christian or not, you belong to a church or not. But so many of us in and outside the Christian faith have a tremendous appreciation and we admire Jesus Christ. What's there not to admire? He, an amazing person, but he is telling us to get rid of language like this because it's in God's eyes the equivalent of murder. So once again, I want to speak to everyone, whether you consider yourself a Christian or not. Doesn't matter to me at this point in this message, but I want you to think about the words that you're using. I don't care how you designate yourself culturally, politically, religiously, but to check out your Facebook post. Just go back over the last few. Are they dehumanizing? Are they contemptible? Are they belittling of others? And what does that accomplish? Because Jesus says you're actually diminishing your own self-worth when you do that. You might say, well, it's the president. It's okay, right? Or it's, again, some senator or the Speaker of the House of the other party. Is it okay? In light of Jesus' words, let me read the words in closing and then talk about sticks and stones. Jesus says, you've heard it was said to the people long ago, you shall not commit murder, and anyone who does commit murder is subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or a sister will be subject to judgment. And anyone who says to his brother or sister, Raka, let's call this knucklehead, is answerable to the court. Anyone who says you fool, or the word there is moron, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. I have a slightly different take on that. Words will harm us, but in a different way. When we name call other people, we may or may not harm them. But Jesus says we harm ourselves with our words towards others, okay? I think that's his point there. Something I hope that we'll all think about. If you have comments, go ahead and leave them here. And I look forward to next time. Yes, I am challenged by these words too, but it wouldn't be much fun if we weren't challenged a little bit. Thank you for watching. God bless you and have a great week.